Here we're going to start getting the cockpit on, and I put glass in there, which is just transparency film. The front piece was easy to do because those are essentially flat. What I did was I cut out the pieces from the frame, and then I colored them black so I could see them, and then just traced and cut them out of this clear plastic. Again, that's transparency film from a transparency we have at school. No one ever uses them anymore, but that plastic is really thin. It's fine for these. I super glued it in, and again, that particular part's kind of easy because the pieces are really actually a little flat. The sides are curved maybe, but that'll work fine. I don't think things will crack. And what I need to do was scrape off all of that aluminum, and where those lines are is exactly where this thing is going to fit. And I've tested it a few times, seems to fit okay. I'm going to start there because I want to make sure that everything else fits and butts up against the way it's supposed to. So start with that, and then I'll sort of move from there. But I got to scrape these things off, and it's not hard to do. It comes right off, and just make sure you don't go outside the line, and make sure that you have it nice and as much paper as you can, because it'll make things much easier when it comes time to actually glue things together. So it's ready to go. So now what I'm going to do is add a little glue to the canopy and drop it on there and try to get it all nice and glued in. As you squeeze it together and things, it's sort of a matter of just kind of holding all the pieces together sort of at once. So what I did was I put glue along the canopy rails here, and I put glue on the front piece, the horizontal piece on the front. Those pieces there, the ears, are important because that's kind of where it's going to get kind of registered, if you will. And so that has to be in there and has to be good. Add some along the front, and then the other side, and then we will just go ahead and pop it onto the cockpit opening. And that's the beginning of the canopy and what will be the spine. All you can do is just do this very carefully because you don't want to get glue on the clear parts, and you don't want to get too much glue squishing out everywhere. So it's kind of delicate. And now you very carefully, with hands of a surgeon, put that on there. And I just grabbed it with my hands like this and then registered it immediately on one side, and then looked around and registered on the other side, which you can't see. And there it is together, and now I'm squeezing pieces, trying to make sure it's good and solid. I squeezed both sides, and I also pushed down the front right there and held it for probably 2 minutes or something, just to make sure the glue started to take. And that's the beginning. And again, I can't reiterate this enough, but the fit is very good. I mean, those lines actually, if you put them there and if you made everything relatively straight, it's pretty good. It looks clean. It looks straight. It's a neat little model, considering, again, hand drawn. I think it's nice, and I haven't had any problem with the aluminum yet. We'll see if I maintain all that wonderful positive attitude. But there's the first part. Now it's cool because it's starting to look like a jet, looking like a real airplane now. Looks cool. I like it. So now I move on to the next piece. Now, the next piece is harder. First, I would put glass in there, and the problem is it's curved. It's really curved. And if I put a flat piece in there and then try to glue it and curve it over, it's going to crack. The glue's going to give way. So what I want to do was make the plastic kind of turn without vac forming it. So I found a dowel, and I cut out my piece of plastic a little bigger than the opening, and I rolled it over and taped it to that dowel. That dowel is it's a little skinnier, but that's okay. There's pullback. And then once that was on there, I lit my Bic lighter and put it underneath that plastic, and just went back and forth without lighting it on fire, of course, and melting it. But when I was done and pulled off the tape, it actually had a decent curve in it. And that means that curve was able to then fit in and glue that very easily without any kind of stress or cracking of the glue or anything. So that's pretty good. So that was a thing I tried for the first time. It worked. Again, I made sure the formers are on there that I'm going to use for the initially. And the first thing to do is get rid of all that aluminum. Again, it's important to do because it's not going to glue without it. So, it takes a little time, but it's a very good thing to do. So here I keep zapping away at speed. Now, once it's ready, I put glue on those tabs, and I tested this 8 zillion times, and it went really well. Now, when I put this on, I had a little difficulty, but I guess I can't expect it to not have some difficulty. Um, Put glue along the rails, making sure not to touch too much of the aluminum if I can help it. Although I find a licked finger or a wet cotton bud or whatever will remove that stuff before it dries, and the aluminum looks fine. Putting along here, I don't care if it's too thick because I'm going to try to, have to glue this all together, and probably going to put a silver strip up there to really put those pieces so that they look like it's seamless, because I don't think it's going to fit that well. My fault, not the kit's fault, I think. Anyway, make sure these formers are glued, and by the way, make sure they're trimmed and sanded. I test to fit everything to make sure that they were the right thickness and that I could pull that paper down around and it would be flush with the top of the fuselage. So I start again on those sides, sort of, making sure those side pieces actually connect where they're supposed to with the inked lines. And looking on both sides, I start holding it with my thumb and my middle finger on my left hand there. And then I start pushing it down on the turtle deck and trying to make it look good and no seams. And I kind of squeeze it together, because as you squeeze it, it gets a little thinner, and then it'll go up to where it's supposed to be. You want it along that flat shelf. You don't want it hanging down over the side where the rounded part of the fuselage starts. And this is where everything worked, but when I was done, you can't see everything at once, but some of those white tabs started sticking out. So I had to go back and do a little triage to stuff them in, add some glue, and push it down so that it would be nice and smooth. See, I found there were pieces that were sticking out and weren't really gluing. So I just used a knife and kind of pushed it back in, squished it and pushed down and push in at the same time. There's another piece that's starting to stick out. Again, when I tested this, it worked fine. Once you put glue on it, it's all bets are off. But I got this pretty good. And worst comes to worst, you could paint or copy a piece of this onto a new piece of paper. Hit it with some future floor wax, give it some extra shine, and a strip of that would look fine. I'm going to have to do that right up there where the canopy, the front attaches to the side, to the hinged part of the canopy, and that's okay. So I'm just making sure these pieces are in, and they should be. And once I get them all in and glued, this is what I end up with. Fumbling around with it, playing with it, but I end up with a pretty neat looking start to the turtle deck. And then what I did was later I put all the rest of the formers on. There's 2 formers left. And I think off camera I'm going to put the rest of the deck on in the back. And then we'll rejoin this when we start to put the tails on, because that'll be more interesting. But this is an important thing, and it was a hurdle. It was a speed bump getting that glass on there. Now it looks pretty cool. The rest I think is going to be relatively easy. And it looks pretty good. I mean, I'm going to have to fix up at the front. I got to tweak a few things. But otherwise, I'm not too upset. I'm going to put some glue on these once they dry and sort of press down on either edge, and that'll help that fit together a little better. But all in all, considering what I'm trying to do, and again, it's hand-drawn, I don't know, it looks pretty good to me. And it will look even better, again, once I put the tail on and stuff. It'll be nice to finish the deck and then put the tail on there. So tails will be the next thing we take a picture of, so stay tuned.